Hello, everyone. Welcome to Captivating Women, a community where faith meets empowerment. Here, we believe that every woman is called to grow, thrive, and lead boldly in every area of life. Join us each episode as we dive into real conversations that challenge, inspire, and equip you to embrace your God-given identity. Whether it's faith, relationships, or personal growth, we're here to empower you to live captivated by purpose. So let's grow together, one captivating conversation at a time. My name is Takira. I am your faith-filled BFF, a girly girl by nature, and a sounding board when needed. And I am so excited that you have joined us for this conversation today.
Hey guys, I'm Keisha, your resident psychologist. I specialize in working with children, but really I've experienced from the cradle to the grave. So I love to share my perspectives and ideas with you all and move the conversation forward.
Hi, my name is April. Like I always say, my patients love to call me Dr. B. I am a cosmetic and restorative dentist, sunset chaser, child of God, traveler, and I'm just super happy to be here.
And today we have a very, very special guest. Yes, I'm excited. We're excited for her to be here. We're excited to welcome a woman who wears many different hats. She is a wife, a mother, an entrepreneur, and a community leader. She has been married for 13 years and she has 2 preteen boys. She's also a very, very passionate businesswoman and the founder of Neighborhood Link, which is a community-based platform dedicated to empowering local businesses and families. But beyond all of this, she is a woman who leads with her faith, serves with her heart, and believes deeply in the power of God-centered relationships. And she is my BFF, Mrs. Vanity Williams.
That was beautiful.
That was good, girl.
I have to give her a proper introduction now.
But I love that.
We
That was
love you.
beautiful.
Thank you so much. No, I'm so honored to be here. I own about 2 preteen boys. I have 2 kids. One just turned preteen. I have 2 girls. You listen
Also,
to my
they're not
brain.
She's like, hold off on another one.
One
Hold
at
on
a
for that
time. But no, it's just so honored to be here with these amazing women. You guys and the platform that you guys are doing here is just amazing. So I'm excited to be a part of the conversation.
We're excited for you to be here. We're excited for you to share your words of wisdom from your perspective, your experience. I know scripture-based teaching that you're going to be doing too. And so we're just happy to have you on. Okay, so what are we going to talk about today? Right? Are we excited?
Dun, dun, dun.
Yes. All right, so we are going to talk about the S word today.
Ooh.
I know what you're thinking, ladies.
Let's talk about
Okay.
Don't let me forget it, girl. Don't let me
Not that S word, the other S word.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, if we're 100%, some women embrace this word, right? But if we're honest, there's a lot of women who avoid it like the plague, and that is submission. Let that resonate for a sec. Think about the emotions that word evokes. Okay, I think this is going to be a good conversation.
Oh, yeah, 100.
Always.
Yes, today we're going to cover submission, what it is, what does it look like in dating and in a marriage, who should you even submit to, and is submission even relevant in 2025?
Yeah.
Okay, so you do not want to miss this. You want to stay tuned in all the way. So I thought about the word submission and I was like, I feel like we need to define it, right? Like, what does submission even mean? So, I went to the dictionary and let me just tell you what
Good
it
old
says.
Webster's.
Good old Webster's. And it says submission is defined as the action of accepting or yielding to a superior force or to the will or authority of another person. So I think generally speaking, when we think of the word submission, we think about it in a relationship of like a marriage and also a dating relationship where a lot of times the woman is expected to submit to the man, right? So a lot of times that's sort of what we see. And I have a question for you guys. Why is it that the word submission evokes such a strong reaction from a lot of people? What is it about it? Is it the word itself, or is it what we've been told that it means?
I think it's the behaviors associated with the words and people not necessarily understanding the power that it holds and have abused that power. So it gives a negative connotation to it. Because I think submission is a natural quality in any type of relationship, you know, especially when learning is involved, because you're showing that someone has some sort of knowledge in something that you need to kind of acquiesce to. And if that is abused, it creates like a negative, you know, result. But if it's followed, there's fruit ahead of it. You know what I mean? So I think that it should be, and I know we're talking about like in this day and age where it's in a relationship with, you know, men and women or whatever type of dynamic that, you know, you want. But I'm just saying as far as like when submission is at the key, it's really important to know like who you're submitting to, their knowledge of it, you know, and what is the fruit that is bared from it, you know?
Yeah. I think that's true. I also think from a historical standpoint, when we look at like the baby boomers, when they first got out, they were kind of, you know, all about the family. They were happy to be outside the home. Then we kind of went into a feminist era. And in that feminist era, I think women were really defending their place, you know. Somebody put it to me like this. We were like, you know, we were women, but we dropped the woo. And we were just kind of behaving like men out here, okay?
Right. But why?
Because we were trying to get our equal footing, right?
Right.
Yes.
And so now the thought of losing that equal footing, I think, is scary for a lot of people. So I think that's why we kind of shrink when we hear the word submission.
Yeah, I think a lot of times people think of submission as one person having control over the other person. I think immediately your mind can kind of go to that. And I'm not even going to lie. When I think of it, I'm like, ooh, submission. That means that, am I submitting to everything that you say? In my head, I'm like, well, what if I don't agree? What happens then?
Yeah.
Am I supposed to just, you know, obey willingly without giving any back talk, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, real
You know,
talk.
so like those are some of the thoughts that sort of come to mind for me when that word comes up.
100%. I think there's almost like an aggressive tone to it, an oppression, right? So you hear it, and some of it's societal norms, right? But we're battling between independent, right? I can do things on my own, and why would I take someone else's lead when I'm out here leading?
Yeah.
So,
Facts.
So that leads me to another question. Does the modern woman have a hard time submitting?
In my opinion, I don't think that she has a hard time submitting because you have to use that skill in multiple environments, right? Like at work, I have to submit to my boss. I have to submit to a bigger program, you know? I can't just do whatever I want. So there's certain leadership that I do submit to. I think romantically, in today's society, it's difficult to find a counterpart that has the equal values and characteristics where you feel that you need to follow your leadership in those areas. The modern woman is successful in a variety of areas, you know?
Yeah.
So it's almost like either you're accepting that I have this skill too, and we can grow from here because nobody's coming, it's like an equal footing, or we can be friends. Like, you know what I mean? I don't know. Like you can be friends. It doesn't need to go further than that.
exactly.
You know what comes to mind for me? So like when I think of the modern woman, like at the end of the day, women are at the helm of the workplace. Like as far as leadership, you're leading, you have people reporting up to you and you're sort of calling the shots a lot, right? And so I can kind of see, or I've heard men say, okay, well, if you're doing that, just make sure when you come home, don't bring that same energy. And so I think that what I've heard, this is word on the street, what I've heard is that a lot of times women have a hard time turning that off when they come home and they carry that same expectation of, you know, sort of calling the shots like you did on your 40-hour work week, you know? And so I think that there could be a little bit of a struggle if you're not mindful of it.
100%.
Yeah.
Because Keisha, just like you mentioned, we're used to submitting in all different facets of life. There's a, you know, supervisor. You're constantly, and let's be honest, most of the time we are dealing with male counterparts in those positions, right? And so we do understand the concept of submitting to their leadership. It's just, how does that show up when we're not doing a 9 to 5, when we're behind closed doors? How do you kind of handle that transition? And I think part of what we're going to talk about today is kind of that root system. Like what makes us nervous to drop it at the door? And is that rooted in like selfishness? Is that rooted in societal norms? Do I feel like by taking someone's lead that I then feel less than? So does that hierarchy create an insecurity in me? And what does that look like, and how to kind of navigate?
So when we think about what is it that impacts submission, right? And so what comes to mind for me is there are people who come to the table with cultural norms. There's a lot of cultures where it's really heavily highlighted that a woman needs to submit to a man in everything, right? When you think of various cultures, there's also biblical dynamics where, the Bible said, there's a scripture that says, wives, submit to your husbands in everything. And then I think there's another norm that we don't really talk about a lot, and that is the norm that you come to the table with, right? So it's like, what did you see growing up? What was that dynamic? What did it look like? Did you see submission, or did you not see it? And I think that can also be something that we carry to that relationship.
100%.
Basically, that almost might be number one, even above cultural and biblical. What did you see, right? And I think that really impacts our personal view on what submission should look like. Yeah.
Absolutely. The environment plays a huge role, right? That's, as a child, that's literally, you're a blank tablet, right? So that's what you're seeing, and you're learning through body language, and you're learning through, words, all these different things. And if you see your one parent or two, and then engage in a healthy dynamic and see that play out, it definitely hardwires into your brain.
Yeah. So I want to transition now to, so now we have our special guest, Mrs. Vanity Williams. And there's just some questions I think that we have in relation to submission, because, you have been married for 13 years. Curious to know, what does submission mean to you? Like, what does it mean to you? And probably I would think that your thoughts about submission may have changed over the years from the time when you were first dating and first got married to now. Tell us a little bit about that.
100%. I'm so glad. I'm so glad that the almost 13 in a week will be.
Anniversary, girl.
So that woman is sitting here versus now, right? And we constantly evolve, and we're changing. And there's, hopefully in 15 years, I'll have something to say different with that, right? But I think my perspective, when we talk about just childhood preconceived notions that we had, being able to say, did I come into a space knowing, did my husband, Brandon, did he come in with his own norms? And then how did we meld those two? I think I really did think it felt like know your place. I think if anything, that's even biblically in church growing up, it felt like this, know your role, right? Know your place, that oppressive nature. And I think that creates this like knee-jerk reaction where it's like that visceral reaction of, I don't want to do that. Right? There's no way. I am equal. Like, why would I do that? And then I think as our marriage transitioned, so for us and how it looks now versus how it looked then, when we had our kids, I decided to take the first 10 years. I had a very tumultuous kind of childhood. So for me, it was important to create a foundation for those first 10 years, to do my best to kind of spring them forward.
Lock in.
And so though I still worked behind the scenes with branding and whatnot, I really made sure that I tried to Proverbs 31.
Right.
That as much. And then as I transitioned, as my children got older, into the workplace and an entrepreneur lifestyle, those roles was like, okay, well, am I still cooking? Am I still cleaning the same way? How does that show up in a day-to-day? And that really brought me back to, what is the concept of submission? And it brought me back to the garden. Like, it brought me back to the Garden of Eden. I really realized that when God gave Eve to Adam, she was a helpmate. At the end of the day, she was a helpmate, built there to nurture, love him. And at the end of the day, Adam was held responsible Because when Eve came and gave him the apple, the first thing that happened is God said, Adam, where are you? He didn't call for Eve. So not only did Adam have the authority, he also had the responsibility.
He did.
And I think that started leading me into more of this like, almost like a captain of the ship type of relationship, where I started realizing at the end of the day, you go down with this ship.
Wow.
And so my role in this marriage is to kind of help with the crew, and a good captain leans to his crew,
Absolutely.
right? But his compass is secured with Christ,
There it is.
right? And so if he is navigating, just like in our workspace, if we have full understanding that our leader is leading the company in the right direction, yielding to that is easy.
That's true.
Because we feel like, hey, you know the direction of the company better than I do, or whatnot, and we're going to naturally lean to that.
Right. How
and
was that
so
process for you?
it's been interesting. So I think when we first got together, so my husband's, he had the image of a wife did stay home. And so she was the nurturer and dad was the breadwinner, which was amazing. Mine was very chaotic initially in the beginning. And so I came in with, well, if I'm not breadwinning, then I'm somehow less than. So I must submit because that's the only role. That's the only piece I'm giving. As time transitioned, that helpmate piece came in because I realized when my husband walks out of these four walls, he is in a space where he needs to feel like he's in tune with his star player. And if I'm his star player at home, I need to make sure that I'm nurturing, respecting him, giving him all the things that outside these four walls he may not get. And so my role transitioned into when I create a space where I'm not constantly rebuttaling, where I'm not constantly disrespecting his word, his leadership, constantly being decisive. Hey, you want to do this? Oh, I don't know if I want to do that. Then I tear down an aspect so that when I'm expecting him to go out and lead, he has an insecurity in his leadership that I've developed within him. And so it really started making me realize, hey, I heard this years ago and I was like, So they were saying that like older women know, look, the man is the head of the home.
Yeah.
The woman's the neck, right? So you need them both, right? And so there are so many examples of women in my mind that do it really well. We had the Coretta Scott King. We have Miss Obama. We have these examples of you can still be strong, powerful, and incredible and not be in his shadow. But what you build within him allows him to lead effectively.
So what would you say to the woman who feels like submission equals silence? Like how do you navigate that space when you don't agree, right? Because the reality is you're not going to agree with every single thing that that man says, right?
Yes.
There's going to come times where, there are things where you lightly disagree about, but then there are going to be times where you both are kind of at an impasse where he feels one way and you feel a different way. What do you say to the person who has a hard time submitting when it comes to those situations?
I think the key, which is why we talk about root system, is making sure that that you didn't get down the aisle with someone that is hard to submit to. Let's start there.
Right.
Let's start there.
The vetting process.
Let's make sure your
Number
vetting
one.
process that
Right.
you have, if you are a garden, that you have the soil and you've done the stuff that you need to in your singlehood to find the right gardener that is using the right tools. Let's just start there.
Yeah.
And then also being able to say, hey, there's going to be times I would love to say, we do not have a perfect marriage by any stretch of the imagination. We have a happy marriage.
Yeah.
And I think that one of the keys was there's going to be times I disagree. I am a very opinionated young lady, right? But also being able to say, who do I submit to first? And I submit to Jesus.
Right.
So I get on my knees when I'm like, okay, Lord, help me to understand him. I don't know how to navigate this space. These waters feel new. I disagree wholeheartedly. Work on his spirit. And then because God is who he is, he turns around and works on me. And that's how that goes. But I really do try to say, okay, Lord, how do I navigate this space? Because he's being ornery or he's, having his own opinions, because we all come in as we're full humans, hopefully. Hopefully you're two full humans that come in to create something beautiful. But that whole concept of that third string is, okay, there's going to be times where I disagree with his direction. But as long as I'm not doing that publicly, like as long as I'm respecting him at the gates, it's okay to say, okay, hey, and if you have a relationship and a best friend, he's going to want to take your direction and your leadership too, because you're a helpmate. So when we disagree, I'm like, okay, let me go to the Lord first. Work on his spirit, work on his heart. And then there's times where, let's be honest, I'm still going to be like, hey, you know, and my neck gets to turn in. I would like to say a little less in 15 years than it did in the beginning. But also being able to say, okay, that would have to be challenging. Like there's some scripture that basically says like, it would be better for you to be on the edge of your roof than be in the home with a quarrelsome woman.
That's the same.
Like nobody wants, not even in friendship. If I was constantly like, April, I don't know about that.
Right.
Keisha, that would get exhausting.
It is.
And so I think being able to navigate that in marriage just says, okay, there's going to be times where we disagree, sometimes openly. Try to be careful around the children with it. And then go to your knees so that you're like, hey, compass of my husband, navigate him correctly.
I think you're hitting the nail on the head, though. I think that's the part that sometimes going into or dating, we have to be mindful of. Number one, making sure that we choose well. But then once we choose well, that's deep what you said. We have to make sure that we're giving them the space to sometimes make mistakes.
Ooh, that's hard.
And it's creating that safe environment where we may be tinkering heavily in the wrong direction, but we don't want to kill that confidence. And I think that's hard, especially, I'm just going to be honest, when we're career women and we're used to running ships at work.
Right.
And so then we have to come home and I have to say, oh, shut up, ship. You got somebody else leading this ship.
Exactly.
And you know what's so funny when we talk about the modern woman dynamic too, is that we're automatically sometimes assuming that our partner's not going to have that capacity as well, right?
Yeah.
And that's where chemistry comes into, because if we're running our ship, chances are, like you said, he should be running a ship too by himself, right?
Yes.
And then we can merge so that we have compatibility. And so hopefully the mistakes that he's making are not so big that we're losing attraction between one another. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And I was thinking when you were speaking, is like timing is very important for these things too. Because if we notice, a lot of our younger, like my parents got married at 19 and 20.
Yes.
And I just had this conversation with my mom the other day about it. And she said that the timing of it helped them because they were both very inexperienced, but figuring it out together. But it was explosive as well, because it's like several dynamics change. You kind of like a sibling dynamic to a partnership, but then like both of you are still not in the capacity of being wives and husbands yet. And, you know, then family baggage that's really holding you back because you're escaping these toxic family systems. But being at an age now where, okay, I have the patience to submit. You know, a 21-year-old patience is like that, you know? And so I'm very appreciative of being like older and reflecting on this and realizing, okay, well, I could submit to a bigger plan. You know, I trust in the leadership of my partner. I trust that they're intelligent enough to know their boundaries and, you know, things like that. So you're not leading me too far off. But then I also trust, you know, hopefully your capability of trusting me, you know, and trusting my thoughts and things that I can bring to the table. And checking myself when it's like, you know, okay, Keisha, do you really want this? Or do you want, you know, come on. God's trying to get you out of this situation. Can you be quiet and take, you know what, you're
exactly.
right.
That soft girl.
You got it.
Can I play devil's advocate for a second? So just kind of going back to what April, you and Vanity said. So let's just say, okay, that your man is, so basically he's leading the ship, right? You know that there is an iceberg that you literally are going to run into if you don't switch course. You are telling him this and he feels very strongly, no, we can avert this. What do you do then? Are you going to allow, and let's just throw in the factor, maybe there's some kids involved, right? So there could be some collateral damage. In those cases, what do you do? Do you
What kind of iceberg are we talking about? I'm trying to think at this stage of the game.
There's situations where that can happen, right?
So this is my opinion, and then we want to hear from the married one.
Yeah.
But this is my opinion. I think that an iceberg that's going to cause harm, you need to speak up.
Right.
If someone's going to die, if it's going to kill the children,
Seriously.
you're out of your mind. If you
We're
think I'm not
mandated
gonna
recording.
say it.
I'm recording on myself. CBS.
We're going to speak up.
I am a child.
Right. We're going to speak up. Absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm calling.
Absolutely.
I will call the police. I will alert the authorities. I do not play.
Absolutely. If it's an iceberg, well, we might just chip the end a little bit.
Right.
We're going to let him chip the end. You know what I mean? We're going to let him direct. And you saw, you knew what I said back when I said it.
Thank you.
Yeah, we still
I said what I said.
But we not gonna say
not going to throw it in his face.
But you're going to feel
The
this a
Holy
little
Spirit
bit.
will bring it back.
Yeah.
He'll bring it back.
Right.
Let him do that.
Yes.
So
that's my
it's almost
opinion.
like literally, and I definitely want to hear what you have to say, but it's almost like picking your battles.
Right.
How bad is this shit?
Because I'm in the shit, right? I'm here.
My kids are in the shit.
Right.
You know? So it's
Right.
like, you know, but yeah, what would you say to that, Ben?
At 100%. First of all, no one's going to drown. We know how to drown.
Right.
But how that shows up in marriage looks a little different. So say it is, he decides, I want to buy a jet ski.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Now we're planning for a vacation.
Right.
That's a little outside of if you guys decide to have that conversation of like, hey, what's our minimum before we have to talk about it?
Yeah.
Right. Which is important, by the way. But if you are like, okay, you know, in the back of my mind, we don't need that right now. Right.
We don't need it
That's
ever.
a financial iceberg.
Okay.
Right. So let's just talk of financial icebergs. You may be like, I don't know. He comes and you're like, you know, I'm going to let you make the decision. What you've just done is you've given him room to make a decision. So I'm going to lean on your discernment. Now, you know all of the outside issues, but I'm going to let you lean on. He chooses, I want this. This is a phenomenal sell. We getting it. Okay. Now, we then struggle a little after that.
But in multiple areas.
Now, you have a couple of choices.
Yeah.
Right.
You, can go, I told you so. Now we sitting here, can't and you can come talking crazy, right? Letting him know all of the situations. Chances are he already knows that,
Right.
right? And so by then taking a breath to say, man, looks like we're gonna have to push that back till July. Man, I was really looking forward to it, but I know you made that best choice, and you know, I think it's gonna be great. I feel like we should go out on it because we have it now, right? I've then just showed you're gonna have that moment, while at the same time, like, Lord, if you don't get this man stuff together,
That's a lot of talking to God.
That's a lot of, but being able to that created two totally different dynamics within our marriage. I come left. I've then showed him financially, you can't lead this. And the next time you do a decision like that, I'll take it from here. Because now I've showed you don't know how to control the finances, right?
Sorry.
And
Cut him off.
but then the reality is that will bite you later when you're leaning on him. Hey, for whatever reason, you lost your job. And now you need to lean in on him and how he handles finances and his discernment. And you're in shambles.
Right.
Or better yet, a good man may go, hey, I don't know if I make the best financial decisions.
Right.
God has given me this helpmate who is an accountant, who is excellent. April's excellent. Keisha's excellent. Takira's excellent with her finances. Let me lean in on you before I make major decisions. And so if you're able, that's why I say being in tune with your star player, because there's a reason why he brought you
together.
Him and same. So being able to navigate, but the other one definitely has ricochet effects because what it does is it puts like a hairline fracture in that boat.
Yeah.
Right.
And then you get
And the
enough of
confidence.
those. And guess what? You get enough of those hairlines.
You crack it.
And you're like, it cracks or
Bottoms out.
or a lady shows up that thinks he can captain her ship a little bit better and starts saying that she starts recognizing the cracks. And so you just have to be mindful of like, hey, there's ricochet effects to me not trusting his leadership and discernment.
Right.
Yeah, I think that there can be this temptation to take over when you see things going in a direction. Like I'll even say, just when I think back of over my own leadership in other areas over the years, how many times have you seen somebody do something you know you can do it better?
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Like, and you know that you can do it better and faster, save time, save money. There is this temptation that, well, I could just do it myself. And I think that is something that can be a little bit of a struggle in a relationship where it's like, well, I got this. I know how to do this well. So it is more of that. I heard somebody say, I think you, Van, say that takeover spirit. That takeover spirit is going to tempt you, but you got to dial it back,
because it backfires.
Especially if you've chosen marriage.
Yes.
If you've chosen marriage, I think you should dial it back.
Right.
Otherwise, you're operating as a single individual.
That's true.
And you might as well have stayed single.
And eventually you will get your wish.
Right.
Yeah.
Seriously.
You will be by yourself.
Compatibility is very important too, because even when you're engaging in like these difficult conversations, having, the idea in mind of like, okay, I actually like my partner. So I actually care about their feelings. So I'm going to communicate to them like, hey, babe, you're not as strong in this area. Are you okay with me, like, helping you out here? Or, helping them to not feel so they can be vulnerable, to kind of let their guard down. And you see sides of each other where you can submit to one another,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
So another question I wanted to ask you is, what does submission look like leading up to marriage? There's a lot of people who are watching who may be in a dating relationship and they are wanting to be prepared for marriage. They're headed into marriage. What does that look like? Should they be submitting to that person now? At which point is that appropriate to do?
So I think in singlehood, it's really tending to your own garden.
Right.
Like, do you have fertile soil?
Right.
Like at the end of the day.
Are you treading water? Or are you drowning? Are you you focus on the wrong things?
Exactly. Because the reality is so many single women, are so concerned about that aisle and that ring. I promise you, I don't look down at this as much as you think I do.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? But it shows up in daily life. So making sure, have I submitted on my knees in singlehood, right? To make sure that my soil is doing what it's supposed to do. And that shows up in general. Do I submit my body? Do I submit my mind? Are my steps ordered? Or what we find is that same takeover spirit, we have that in our spirituality as well.
Right.
That part.
Yes, Lord. The Lord be sitting me down. Girl. I'm not doing it.
Chill out.
Exactly.
And
that
that
is exactly because we're like, we've created our own image of what we perceive we want our life to be. And then we direct because we are directors. So then we say, okay, God, this is what I need. This is, I'm looking for 6'2", 6-figure, blah, 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 blah. And we create this concept where in singlehood, we don't want to submit. So that makes it, that resistance only grows. Because if you can't submit to the Lord, girl, bye. You are not going to be able to do that in marriage. Because at the end of the day, like, and again, this is all coming from a Christian lens, right? But at the end of the day, when you talk about even the Trinity, right? Jesus said, not my will, but your will be done. So if the Lord can submit, what are we doing? Right? Yeah. And so the reality is making sure that we in our singlehood have come to the space where we're not always trying to be right. We're not always trying to, because the reality is I have so many girlfriends where it's like, hey, you may command that ship. But the reality is when those lights turn off, and those doors shut, you don't want to control that ship. You are ready for that soft girl era, right? So don't resist something that you're trying to pull in too, right? Because that energy will do its own destruction. So just making sure that you are in tune with yourself, in tune with Christ. I think the year before I got married, I really was like, okay, Lord, how do I just kind of get in tune with myself? Now, what I did not know is he would take me through the craziest year of my life. But I had to face all that trauma. I had to face all of where am I finding my puzzle pieces, right? Am I seeking it from men? Am I doing all of that stuff from childhood trauma that I may have had? And then getting to the place where I had that oneness within myself and the Lord allowed me to enter in a man into a space where I was whole, not looking as a broken woman, looking to have someone act like they're glue. Right. So just making sure that you are together. And then do you submit I think you give a leash of leadership. Right?
I like that.
I'm going to steal that.
A leash of leadership. Because you want to know, at the end of the day, you want to know, what is his discernment when it comes to big decisions? Though it changes. Again, we're at a stage where we're going to start losing parents. he may lose his job, any of those things. How does he handle pressure? How does he navigate when he's happy, when he's angry? Finding a way to realize all of that. Is he a good gardener? Does he have the right tools?
Yeah. And I can co-sign that a man who is emotionally astute and in tune with the Lord is going to be looking for traces of your ability to follow.
Right.
Yes.
I think years back, I heard you say something and it's resonated with me since then. And this was a while ago. And you said, make sure you see someone in all seasons of their life. Yeah. And it like set off a flashbulb in my mind because it's so true. You know, you have to see how they resolve within themselves different experiences and emotions, and then what they do to reset themselves. And I know I bring that to like some of the couples that I counsel. It's like individually, what is this person doing to maintain themselves? You know, if they can do that to bring that back to the partnership, you guys will be okay. But if it's destructive coping skills, it's things that are just like pushing each other away from each other, then, it's going to be harder to lay that foundation to build. But that was such a good key phrase that it's always stuck with me. This was like 10 years ago.
I love that. It has literally been one of the key things in our marriage, because the reality is all the stuff that's cute in dating, like spoiled in dating, is selfish in marriage.
Wow.
Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you have to navigate all of that stuff now, because it will show up in different ways when it doesn't. And I think too, it is our nature. Like, not to constantly go back to the word with that stuff, but it's like God made us nurturing. He made us to crave love. He made men to crave authority and respect, which is why they say men go for respect, women go for love, right? And that is also why he says, love a woman like the church, right? He instructs the man to love and the woman to respect, because it's tied into their very nature.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing you say is that choosing the right person to submit to is probably foundational. It is like the most important, because when we think about it, there's some things rumbling in the news right now, right? Where, in certain individuals, no judgment, submitted to the wrong person.
Sometimes we have to judge though. Sometimes, I think sometimes we do have to judge certain situations just to realize that this is not normal or acceptable behavior in certain realms. You know what I mean? Certain behaviors are so egregious that we need to like hold people to a certain level of accountability to recognize them, and their community. Like, okay, some things need to be called out to extinguish so that we can, move forward in certain things. I mean, I understand what you're saying, as far as no judgment, as far as us like putting off that energy. But some things I was thinking this week, like, no, shame and guilt are sometimes healthy things for people to feel to change.
Yeah.
And if you're not feeling shame and guilt, because I know there's many times I've been on my knees feeling shameful and guilty, and it's caused transformational change in me. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
Sorry, I just got a little passionate about that. It's been a hectic week.
Important, because I think people need to know that there is a such thing as unhealthy submission.
Right.
For sure.
Right.
Absolutely.
You really can't submit to just anyone.
And then what are you perpetuating with that?
Yeah. And it could be detrimental to your own life.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
So it's like you really have to be mindful and not take that like all the way to the extreme, 100%. And making sure, if somebody is putting you in harm's way, like I'm looking to you.
Look at the camera.
If they're putting you in harm's way,
I will call the people.
Harm.
I will call the people.
It is not, and it's not risking your own personal safety. In those cases, that I would say is unhealthy submission, right?
Yes. I would agree. And I think, like we keep saying, it's the vetting process. And that's what we may not be able to get into fully this episode, but on another one, it's really important that we know who we're submitting to and what that person is involved with. We can't just be doing that with anything. Because for me, at the end of the day, submission helps to build intimacy. Yes, and I think that is the ultimate goal, is to develop deeper intimacy with your partner. And I think, so that you can continue to have a healthy, and it's not a one size fit all. And I, as a dentist, I liken things to the face and teeth. But what I will say is that when we create an environment where intimacy, like submission and these different things, can grow, it's not a one size fit all. It may not look the same for you and your relationship as it looks for the next, The same way when I'm creating a smile, it may not look the same on Takira as it would Keisha. But at the end of the day, my goal is to create something that's beautiful for you. It's the same thing with submission. We want to create a dynamic in the relationship that works for us.
Right.
And we're not saying it all looks the same is what I'm trying to say. It may look different.
It may 100%. Some of the best submitting I do is in the bedroom.
But to piggyback off of that, like when you were talking, marriage is a calling. It is a calling. And like you said, there's different types of relationships. And I believe some are building blocks for others because it allows people to develop the skills that they need for literally like the next stage. Yeah. But not everybody's called to marriage. No. Not everybody's called to it because it requires a certain relationships in general require a certain level of work.
Yes. A dying to self for sure.
Right. And so marriage, if we look at it as like the highest level of partnership, you have to be ready for that thing.
Yes.
And, that's why timeline is so important and like really submitting to divine time, and I think that's believed for me to relieve a lot of the anxiety towards it because it's realizing like, okay, if I'm not feeling it, then it's not the time, because I know for a fact God will align me to the energy that I need to even be open to it and to recognize certain things in a partner that's healthy for me and one another, and then that will be the person that I partner with and go to those different levels with.
Yes. Yeah. 100%. Because it's not just gender roles. Right. I think, again, people think submission like cook, clean, high heels with an apron. That is not. So the most submissive thing you'll do is your tone and how you lean into discernment. It's not necessarily, you come home and there's hot food. Because I would be lying. Okay. Just so that we're clear. I do my best. I would love to say that my husband is well fed. But there's also that whole concept of societal norms. Hey, I want something that's 50-50. No, sometimes it's 60-40. Sometimes it's 80-20. Emotionally we go through seasons. There are times where you may have a birth and you can't cook and clean. And so how do you do that in realizing in the beginning stages, hey, we're dating, right? You ask those questions. Right. Hey, what does marriage look like to you? Are you used to someone cooking and cleaning? Do you know how to do your own laundry? Do you know? And if that's not the case, but that's something that you've grown up realizing, then hey, maybe we do a fun dating thing where we go to the grocery store and we make an entree together so that you kind of have those tool sets to take care of this garden because for whatever reason the Lord has brought you to me and this is what I'm willing to do and these are my red flags. So if we're going to meld this thing, this is how we have to do because you will have some, let's just call them landscapers that are like, okay, I want this garden and I'm still learning how to use some of these tools.
Right. Right. Especially with when we're talking about the modern woman, you're coming to the table with a lot. So you're asking, for us to kind of put some things on the back burner. You want some meals and okay, my hours need to be cut short here. You want this and okay, am I ready to kind of sacrifice my career in this way for us to move forward, So it's a high stakes game at that point.
It is. And most women, I think too, if you talk, even like the career woman, where it's like, what are your goals? When you talk about a 5-year goal, there are women that are like, I want the top of the game and the soft girl era. Okay. Let's meld those two. What do they look like in real time? Right. Are you willing to, I want kids, but I also want to be at the top of my career. And I also want to be a Proverbs 31 wife. Okay, it's all possible. I would like to do my best. I'm doing my best. But it's also like, you have to, because again, it's like, you don't want to carry that weight. Most women, when you really break it down, it's like, I want to, just because I can do the gas and do the, I want to do all this. I'm tired too.
I think at this point, we want to sit back and like, okay, you want to lead? Go right ahead.
I think we do, but I think we still want to have a lot of opinion.
Yes.
That's
if
true.
I'm honest.
But I don't mind working.
Yes.
That's what I'm saying.
Listen. All right. No, I don't mind working. I know that certain things are going to come to the equation, such as like, okay, children are going to get involved. You're going to have some well-behaved, smart children because I'm going to sacrifice this level of time and, to pour into them. Okay, I don't mind this level of sacrifice. What does that look like for him? You know what I mean? What is he willing to sacrifice as well for us to like that part?
She says she doesn't mind working. I would like to not work. I'll work, but if I could have the option not to,
But you mean a career, though. You mean a career. You rather work in the home.
I mean,
let
me think about this. At this point, I feel like I've done the career thing. I'm like, it's a good run.
Right.
You know, I did that. I feel like
top.
I feel like at this stage, I'm saying this out loud for the first time. I've never even said this to myself, but I think at this stage, I would probably be okay.
Yeah.
You
No,
know?
I understand. I say that because I do find fulfillment in my work. So, and in my work, I can do it in multiple environments. So that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't mind seeing clients here and there, like transitioning to that level on a smaller scale because I'll be working in the home. Like we're shifting towards another goal. I'm not doing it all, you know? And the funny thing, I know I'm jumping all over, but I saw this one TikTok of a lady who, when we spoke about gender roles earlier, she presented in her marriage, like she doesn't cook her husband's meals. She only cooks for the kids. She doesn't make his doctor's appointments, his dental, all this stuff that it works. And so there was a lot of backlash that she received online. But then there were some people that were in support. And she was just saying like, no, it kind of trains him, that's the wording that she used, to see that I'm not going to be making your appointments. I'm not going to be cooking. I'm not your housekeeper. I'm your wife.
Yes.
I wonder how he feels about that.
The men were quite upset for him, you know?
Yeah, it's a lot.
So,
feels like it's,
you know,
somebody's getting
every
short end
marriage
of
is
the stick.
different.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that brings back to a really key point too, is if I told myself this then, I mean, luckily I've navigated it well, but pouring out of an empty cup is impossible.
Right.
And so if you're doing something and it's not from a willing space, you will eventually run dry. And that whole concept of happy home, happy wife, happy life
Do you guys like each other?
Right? And so if that works, and every marriage is different, and that's what's key. Every marriage is different, every relationship. But in the concept of, am I doing those things because I feel like I have to? And then also, now that I'm back in the workspace, if I must say, what happens as, let's just say, stay-at-home mom, you have these societal norms where we almost look down on the stay-at-home mom. You have women that are like, I wish I could, girl, stay at home. And that attitude that we perpetuate towards, what does that mean? Some of the hardest work I've done was when I had vomit on my thing, on my shirt. I had to make a meal. The house was like kind of cluttered. And I also, when my husband came through those doors, had to put on a smile and be his wife and not just the mother of his children. Some of the hardest work, but I felt that constant pressure from corporate America and from the women in my life, really, that looked down on, that was the easiest thing that I've done. I wish I could do that. And not really realizing the weight of the responsibility of that role. You know, I said, hey, even now that I'm in the other space as an entrepreneur, I'm back into the grind of it all. It's like, yeah, there's times where I would take this 9 to 5 over going back to that. Because that was hard work.
It was hard.
And also dealing with the societal norms of like, wait a minute, I don't value more. And I think that's the other part. I don't value more now that I am a brand consultant than I did when I was the 0 to 10 years with Ty and Eli's. I was just Ty and Eli's mom. You know, my value never changed. And so I think as women in platforms like this, when we give space to say, both are needed, because let's be honest, it was the grandmas and the moms and the Cosby shows and all of those things where we got a chance to see, hey, there's something to be said for creating a safe space, which is what a woman does when she is home. She literally navigates, she's the logistics behind that operating ship. And what happens is when you go into that 9 to 5 and you both are 9 to 5, you both come out like, okay, now wait, okay, so what is the temperature of the valve? And then now we're both trying to figure it out, and you're leaning on him and he's leaning on you, and that can get chaotic. There is something to be said for the tone that when your home is a place in a safe haven, which is easier when you are a stay-at-home mom, because your focus is more on those 4 walls.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I have a question for you. How would you say submission fits into disagreements?
I think that there are times where initially, when we first started marriage, where it was my way or my opinion because I'm opinionated, and I also feel right and vindicated most of the time.
Right.
Give yourself some time. You'll see it from my perspective.
Yes, yeah.
But also, again, kind of just realizing that it tears down the actual aspect of who I'm trying to build him up to be.
Right.
Okay.
I cannot tear you down and build you up at the same time. So if I'm constantly disagreeing with, because sometimes, especially again, like let's just talk about that, like home life, you're constantly trying to have a voice, right? And so you're running the inside ship. Mm-hmm. And so when he comes in from a parenting perspective to state something, you're like, well, I've been doing that. This is what works inside the ship.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You control the deck. Mm-hmm. Below deck, I got it,
mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And they have a voice too, right? And just in full transparency, that is where there's times where we're still navigating that as we head into preteen, but really giving him space to say, okay, where is the Lord leading you from a parenting standpoint? This is where he's leading me. Right. And then when I disagree with that, going back to the Lord, going, redirect, because that's not necessarily, but then also I realize, and again, in full transparency, when I decide to step in front of that role, then it backfires on the back end. Because then I'm raising young men, which will be husbands and fathers. Yeah. When they get a chance to not see me submit to the leadership role, it also allows them to know that they don't have a voice as a young man. Yeah. And so I'm constantly trying to navigate, I don't want you to have childhood trauma with something, right? Right. But also being able to lean to like, hey, so I constantly do my best to say, your father is the head of this home. What he says does go. Now, granted, I also balance because I'm a strong Black woman to say, having said that,
you contributed to that as well.
You part of who you are is because of who I am.
Right.
Yeah.
And making sure that they know so that they realize how to give a woman a voice in her home, which a lot of men have a struggle doing. And then also realizing that men come in with their preconceived notion. I praise God for my mother-in-law and the way that she raised Brandon and his aunties because they were able to pour it into like, no, you may make the ultimate decision with some things, but God made you to listen and ask for leadership from her too. Right? She is a helpmate. And that word help is the same thing that God says that he is to us. So it is not a submissive role. It doesn't mean that it is an oppressive role. If the Lord can do it, you can. Right. And you have to lean in for her voice too. And so that's
good.
And what I'm taking away from it is like this role is very much highlighted in the confines of the marriage. It's like, we may not always have to feel that way outside of it, And when we talk about it amongst like single women and stuff, we can change the narrative behind it, that it's not a bad thing, you know? And especially, I love that you and your husband both individually have a relationship with God. So there's a quote by Iyanla Van Zandt that she says, a man accountable to no one is a danger to himself. And so if you are not accountable to anything, and in our case, we're accountable to God, it prevents you from doing certain things. It prevents you, God will stop you in your tracks because of that relationship and that submission to God. And so I love the fact that you guys are always, you'll go to your respective corners and pray about it, and then you can see it unfold naturally.
Yeah. Wow, this is... been a great combo. It
has with a great guest. I love it.
Very great nuggets. I think if I were to say my two big takeaways is, again, number one, choosing the right person to submit to.
Hallelujah.
That's the foundation upon which everything else rests, right? It's like you cannot submit to everyone, but you need to make sure that the person that you are submitting to is the person that, God has placed in your path to submit to. And then number two is, I like what you said earlier, was that submission. It's not that one person has this hierarchy over the other. There's still two equal individuals, but it rests on who has the greatest accountability, right? Just like, some sort of leadership and organization. I remember you saying before is like, okay, I have people that report up to me and I report up to someone else, but my boss has greater accountability over things than I do, and vice versa for the other people. So making that association was really, really helpful.
It was.
I'm okay with being vice president.
Hey,
I'm okay with that.
There we go.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So any closing thoughts for us?
I think what this platform is going to be amazing at is really giving women an understanding of just saying, okay, hey, there's these topics that we're still navigating ourselves. And when we get into unity with other like-minded women, we're able to say, hey, this is my viewpoint on it. And really being able to give each other a voice to, hey, this is how I feel from a societal norm. This is how it is a beautiful thing. So I just commend you, ladies.
Yeah,
thank you so much.
Sorry. Good. Were you
Oh,
gonna
no,
say?
go ahead.
Okay, one last thing I wanted to ask, if I could ask. Just in closing here, what are some of the things that women can do to prepare? I don't know if I asked that already.
Like just in our singlehood?
Yeah, in the singlehood.
I think she and I talk about this often, but really just making sure that you are in tune with your own compass, right? Like that you are in tune with yourself. I think one of a really cool way that I was able to be blessed by a woman who helped me navigate this space pre-marriage is feeling like, how do I fill my own cup? Because we cannot look for a man to complete us, right? We know that, most of us. we cannot look for a man to complete us. So if we can get in this space, and sometimes it's silly. Like I know what sins lift my spirit. I know what songs lift my spirit. I know when my cup is getting
That's perfect. Yeah.
like mid, hey, and I have that open communication with Brandon and say, hey, I'm at 40%, right? Being able to just know yourself, know the Lord, make sure that your steps are being ordered now so that when he does come in, you're not having unhealthy submission because you're wanting the aisle and the ring and the title, that you're more submissive to the concept of this man is to take me to the next level, right? And so you'll have enough discernment to recognize when he comes into your space that he is a godsend so that you can navigate together. But if you're out here looking for the titles, rings, and all of that kind of stuff, you can easily get into unhealthy submission and you can easily get into love, which is blinding, right?
That was a good one. No, that is so true because that distorts the timeline. Because it doesn't say that that's not your partner per se, but you're going to be dealing with things prematurely or dealing with things just out of order. And it's going to make it for a very bumpy ride.
A very bumpy ride. And then also, like you were saying too, you guys were talking about just making sure he is in tune, right? Because all of this does not matter if they are not in tune with their star player. As Kat says, like you have to make sure that the conversation is null and void. If they don't know who they're submitting to, forget it. And most of the time we can, if they're not a selfless person and you're already getting those red flags now, I can promise you, sis, it will come up within the marriage. Because again, some of those tendencies, like, oh man, sometimes you get a little crazy, got a little temper, is anger in marriage. You know, really being able to navigate what are the things we're willing to take now? What are the things I'm willing to take for myself? Do I navigate my own happiness first so that I'm not looking for him to fulfill something that was never, he was never made to fulfill your happiness. That's something that the Lord does. But when you do complete that picture the correct way, you are literally completing the image of Christ.
Wow.
And there's so much beauty in that. And I really think, girl, you left us on a strong note to wrap up on, girl. Real strong.
Sure did.
But what we really just want to drive home, like we keep saying, who you choose. Submission is a strength, not a weakness. Submission starts with God, okay, before it was ever given to man. We want you guys to remember that. And then we also want you to remember that the right man won't demand submission. He'll inspire it. This has been Captivating Women, where women empower other women.
Amen.
So we hope you guys tune in next time. We're so happy to share this space. We want to make sure that you guys drop in the comments any questions you might have, any statements you might have, because our goal is to inspire conversation through a community where we all can grow. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How can they follow you?
Yes.
Tell them how they can follow you.
Neighborhood Link. We also have Creative Link that's spelled with a K for any of your brand consulting needs. We would love to help take your brand to the next level. And love community. And I love the platform you ladies are doing.
And what platforms are those on?
So Instagram, Facebook. Join us. We'd love to help you take your brand to the next level.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
Thank you, girlie.
Thank
Great
you.
combo.
Love.
Love it.